Secretary to the Minister for Communications.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very pleased to rise to speak on the Labor 2013-14 Budget Savings Measures No. 1 Bill 2014, which is an important bill which repeals the second round of the carbon tax-related personal income tax cuts that, in the absence of this bill passing into law, would take effect from 1 July this year. In the time available to me, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to make 3 points. Firstly, I'd like to highlight the hypocrisy and the irresponsibility which sadly we've seen from the opposition when it comes to the matter of the budget. Secondly, I'd like to focus on the measures contained in this bill which are designed to hold the Labor Party to its promise made before the last election that it would repeal the second round of carbon tax-related personal income tax cuts. And thirdly, I'd like to highlight more broadly why it is vitally important that we have from both major political parties a responsible approach to budgetary management. Let me turn therefore firstly to the proposition that what we have seen, sadly, from the opposition Labor Party is a staggering display of hypocrisy and irresponsibility when it comes to the matter of the management of the Commonwealth budget. It is very hard to take senior figures from the opposition seriously on the question of the management of the budget. Over 18 months, we've heard a range of airy generalities about fairness and the future. In the lead-up to the budget this year, the Shadow Treasurer gave the impression that he was concerned about the budget deficit. For example, he was quoted in the Australian Financial Review in April of this year saying, quotes, "The deficit is blowing out again under Joe Hockey's watch in the upcoming budget." In fact, despite what the Shadow Treasurer was warning in that article, in the budget delivered in May this year, the Treasurer laid out a credible path back to surplus. And in response to that, what we had from the opposition Labor Party was a series of airy generalities about fairness in the future, claims that the budget, quotes, wasn't a plan for the future and that it, quotes, still retains some of the unfairness of last year, close quotes. Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I fear that we cannot treat seriously comments from any Labor figures on the question of budget repair, and for 3 reasons we ought to treat such comments with withering scepticism. The first is the record of inept budget mismanagement that we saw in the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd government, and it's worth reminding ourselves that the present Leader of the Opposition and the present Shadow Treasurer were senior figures in the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd government. That government inherited a strong and healthy budget, with surpluses in 2006-7 and 2007-8 of $17 billion and $20 billion respectively. But once Wayne Swan and subsequently Chris Bowen got their hands on the policy levers, surpluses quickly disappeared, and in the next 6 years we saw a grim and growing run of deficits, reaching almost $250 billion in total. Negative $27 billion, negative $54 billion, negative $48 billion, negative $43 billion, negative $18 billion and negative $50 billion was what we saw in terms of a series of deficits under the previous Labor government. The second reason the Labor Party simply cannot be taken seriously on this issue is its grossly irresponsible behaviour concerning the measures which it had planned when in government to implement. These measures, delivering combined savings of $5 billion over the forward estimates, were included in the costings that Labor took to the 2013 election. For example, Labor included in its 2013-14 budget, delivered in May 2013, a series of savings measures for higher education, delivering total savings exceeding $2 billion, such as converting the student start-up scholarships to income-contingent loans. Naturally enough, therefore, the Treasurer, the member for North Sydney, included these measures in his budget, brought down in May 2014. After all, if Labor had already promised to introduce these measures, it could naturally, surely, be relied upon to support them if the coalition legislated to implement them. Could it not? Wouldn't that be the most reasonable proposition in the world? Well, it turned out, sadly, Madam Deputy Speaker, that no, Labor could not be relied upon to achieve even this minimal degree of consistency. It has reversed its position on these measures, and despite the fact that it announced them in 2013-14, despite the fact that it included the savings from these measures in the 2013-14 budget, it has subsequently refused to support legislation to give effect to these measures, notwithstanding the fact that if Labor had continued in government after the 2013 election, it would itself have needed to introduce legislation in exactly the same terms. Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, if Labor cannot even bring itself to offer a minimal degree of assistance in the budget repair task by being prepared to support measures which in government it said it would introduce, then it simply has no credibility in even talking about the budget repair task. And perhaps the third and most fundamental reason why the Labor Party has no credibility on budget repair is that if that party seriously considered that budget repair were a worthwhile policy objective, it would have the power in its hands to achieve that objective. Let me remind the House of the basic arithmetic which operates in the other place. There are 76 senators. Of those, 25 of them are Labor senators. The coalition has 33 senators. Together, that makes a comfortable majority in the Senate. To achieve budget repair, all Labor need do is support the coalition's budget repair measures. Or if it doesn't want to do that, it could come forward with its own measures, and there could be a serious dialogue, as befits serious national political parties, about how to achieve the budget repair task. Instead, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have Labor on the one hand claiming to be concerned about the budget deficit, but on the other hand failing to engage on measures that would do something about it. Well, let me turn now, Madam Deputy Speaker, to what this bill does, the bill before the House this evening, because the purpose of this bill is to hold Labor to its word. This bill is designed to facilitate the Labor Party keeping its election policies. The effect of this bill is to implement the policy committed to by Labor in the 2013-14 budget of repealing the second round of carbon tax-related personal income tax cuts that are due to take effect in the absence of this legislation on the 1st of July this year. If that repeal were to proceed, then the tax-free threshold will remain at $18,200 rather than increasing to $19,400, and the second personal marginal tax rate will remain at 32.5% rather than increasing to 33%. The maximum value of the low-income tax offset will remain at $445 rather than falling to $300, and the withdrawal rate of the low-income tax offset will remain at 1.5% rather than falling to 1%. Madam Deputy Speaker, in opposition, the coalition committed to keeping the first round of personal income tax cuts and associated pension and benefit increases, and they have been retained. We went on to promise and to give effect to our promise of removing the carbon tax, which is saving the typical Australian family $550 in this year alone. But what this bill before the House this evening does is to implement a measure which was announced and which was committed to by the Labor Party when in government. In the final budget handed down by Wayne Swan on the 14th of May 2013,
Remember, refer to people by their correct titles.
the former government deferred a second round of personal income tax cuts, resulting in a $1.5 billion saving over the then forward estimates. And indeed, due to the addition of 2 further years to the forward estimates since then, the measure is now worth $2.8 billion to the budget over the next 4 years. Now, the previous government never got around to legislating this measure, the financial benefits of which it included in its 2013-14 budget. Indeed, this was one of nearly 100 announced but unimplemented taxation measures left to the Abbott government by the previous Labor government, and this bill is intended to give effect to the measure which Labor announced but never implemented. Indeed, I'm sorry to have to inform the House, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this is not the first time we've sought to legislate this measure, which Labor committed to when it was in government. And on more than one occasion, Labor has voted against legislation containing this particular measure, notwithstanding the fact that it committed to this measure when it was in government. And the hypocrisy and the irresponsibility of this, frankly, is staggering and remarkably disappointing. Madam Deputy Speaker, there are a range of measures which Labor announced and committed to when in government, which it now opposes. And indeed, these total $6.5 billion. In addition to the $2.8 billion measure which is the subject of the bill before the House this evening, there is the change to the treatment of student start-up scholarships, where there was a $2.1 billion savings measure committed to by Labor when in government, a decision by Labor in government to apply an efficiency dividend to university funding of worth $1.2 billion in savings, and the abolition of the discount for paying HECS fees up front, which was a $336 million savings measures. All of these measures with a total value of $6.5 billion committed to by Labor in government. It now refuses to support legislation to give effect to these measures which it announced that it was committed to when in government. Let me thirdly make the point, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the brief time remaining to me, that budget responsibility is a matter of the highest importance. This government has inherited an extraordinary budgetary mess, thanks to the rank and serial incompetence of the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd governments. The consequence of the huge blowout in debt and deficit under those governments is that this year we are paying around $14.2 billion in gross interest costs, which works out to be about $40 million a day. So there is a very important task ahead of this government and ahead of the nation, which is to restore the Commonwealth budget to a sustainable state, and that's why it's so important that we have a credible path back to surplus. That's the credible path back to surplus which is committed to by the Treasurer at the recent budget. Madam Deputy Speaker, for the sake of our nation and the sake of our people, there is a serious job to do on budget repair. The Abbott government is methodically getting on with this task. It would be hoped, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the other major political party in this place would demonstrate responsibility of a nature which goes with the stature that it holds as a party. Responsibility of the kind that significant and substantial Labor governments have demonstrated in the past. I'm sorry to say that the current Labor Party, the current parliamentary Labor Party, is simply not up to the standard of previous Labor parliamentary parties. It has refused to engage seriously on the budget repair task which faces this nation. And it's about time the Labor Party addressed this matter with some seriousness. The bill before the House is designed to hold Labor to account, to do what it promised it would do prior to the last election, and I commend the bill to the House.
It being 9 p.m, I propose the question that the House do now